News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. A rebound in stocks gained traction amid easing jitters around artificial intelligence disruption, while a slew of data showed the U.S. economy is holding up. Bonds fell, Bitcoin sank to around 66,000, oil jumped. The Wednesday numbers on Wall Street, the Dow was up 129, NASDAQ gained 175. The S&P added 38. The 10-year Treasury yield is at 4.08%. The 2-year yield is at 3.46%. Federal Reserve officials signaled renewed worries over inflation, with several policymakers suggesting the central bank may need to raise interest rates if inflation stays above their goal. Here's Bloomberg's Mike McKee.
Several participants indicated that they would have supported a two-sided description of the committee's future interest rate decisions, reflecting the possibility that upward adjustments could be appropriate.
Minutes of the Federal Open Market Committee's January 27th and 28th meeting, released Wednesday, also revealed that a vast majority of participants judged that downside risks to employment had moderated in recent months, while the risk of more persistent inflation remained. The FOMC voted 10-2 at the meeting to hold the benchmark federal funds rate in a range of 3.5% to 3.75%. Crews have found the bodies of 8 backcountry skiers and are searching for one more who is still missing after an avalanche in the mountains near Lake Tahoe, making it the deadliest U.S. avalanche in nearly half a century. Sheriff Shannon Moon made the announcement.
Of the 6, 1 was a Blackbird mountain guide, and 5 survivors were clients on that tour.
Sheriff Moon then talked about the terrain.
It's a very remote, rugged area on the north side of the highway there. It is not a groomed area or a ski resort area. This is a backcountry area, rugged terrain.
Authorities have told the families the mission has moved from rescue to recovery. 6 others from the same group of skiers were rescued Tuesday. They were on a 3-day trek in northern California, Sierra Nevada, as a monster winter storm pummeled the west coast. Billionaire retail tycoon Leslie Wexner told a U.S. House panel Wednesday that he visited disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island, but said he wasn't aware of Epstein's sex trafficking operation at the time. Wexner said he visited the island once with his wife and children for a few hours, while the family was in the area on their boat. This according to an opening statement Wexner made in a deposition to congressional investigators that was provided to Bloomberg News by his attorney. The House Oversight Committee has been investigating what role Epstein's broad network of connections may have played in facilitating his enterprise or delaying criminal prosecution. This is California Democrat Robert Garcia, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee.
Mr. Wexner admitted that he traveled to both Epstein's island as well as his other properties. Mr. Wexner also admitted that Jeffrey Epstein had access to a lot of Mr. Wexner's wealth.
And Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett.
As a trained attorney and litigator, once they told me he wasn't taking the 5th, I thought that the record would be full of I don't remembers. I will tell you that once this record comes out, you will see that you most likely will be left with more questions than answers.
Oil gained as traders weighed whether talks between the U.S. and Iran will be enough to avert conflict, following a report that American military intervention could come sooner than expected. Brent crude briefly rose above $70, while West Texas Intermediate rose as much as 4.1% to trade near $65 a barrel after Axios reported that any U.S. military operation would likely be a weeks-long campaign rather than the pinpoint operation that took place in Venezuela last month. Israel's government is pushing for a scenario targeting regime change. Bloomberg national security editor Michelle Jamrisco says it's still unclear how this will all end.
The reason we're so focused is because we have to pay attention. If nothing has happened until it does. As we know with this president, something could trigger a kinetic response.
You can hear more from Michelle Jamrisco on the Bloomberg Balance of Power podcast. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt talked about the Iran situation during today's press briefing.
There's many reasons and arguments that one could make for a strike against Iran. The president had a very successful operation as commander-in-chief with Operation Midnight Hammer, as you just said, totally obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. The president has always been very clear, though, with respect to Iran or any country around the world, diplomacy is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal with President Trump.
The Wall Street Journal reports that according to U.S. officials, a major U.S. arms sales package for Taiwan is in limbo following pressure from Chinese leader Xi Jinping and concerns among some in the Trump administration that greenlighting the weapons deal would derail President Trump's coming visit to Beijing. In a phone call earlier this month with Trump, Xi urged caution on U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, the democratic self-governing island that China claims as part of its territory. Trump wants to avoid antagonizing China ahead of his visit set for the first week of April. A second day of U.S. brokered meetings between Russia and Ukraine in Geneva broke up after barely 90 minutes today. As Bloomberg's Tony Halpin reports, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy is accusing Moscow of attempting to prolong the process.
Zelenskiy said that Tuesday's talks were difficult, and he's basically accused the Russians of dragging out the negotiations. The leader of the Russian delegation came out and spoke briefly to press, saying that they had long talks yesterday and a couple of hours today, and they'll go back and now report on progress to President Putin.
Bloomberg's Tony Halpin reporting from Dubai. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff says there was meaningful progress during yesterday's talks. He says both sides agreed to keep working toward a deal. At the Winter Olympics, Michaela Schifrin wins gold in Olympic women's slalom, which breaks her 11-year medal drought at the Winter Games. The medal count at last check, Norway leads with 33, Italy has 25, the U.S. is third with 24. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. This is Bloomberg.